New Jersey. It was so long ago, I can't remember. At least, must have been 8 years or so. I was in, where was I? I think it was in Edison or around there. I had a disciple, Guru Nishta. She used to live in New Jersey. I don't know if any of you know her. They moved back to India maybe 5, 6 years ago. So sometimes I would come, and sometimes in Tawako. I did a few seminars there. And until Ramchandra wrote me, I had no idea that there was another program going on. So this is the first I knew about it. So it's exciting, happy to be here. And so we were thinking what we should speak about. And because it was Govardhan Puja, we thought, well, it's natural we'd speak on Govardhan Puja, but we wanted to maybe to speak on something relatable, not just tell the story, but try to understand it in a way we could apply it. So we were thinking of Indra. Indra is, of course, not an enemy of Krishna, but he had become an enemy temporarily. So that's why we titled it, what did we title it? Don't pick a fight with Krishna. Is that it?
Right.
Yeah. Don't pick a fight with Krishna, which is basically what Indra did. And then on my way back from the temple, about 15, 20 minutes ago, I thought, well, Indra picked a fight with Krishna, but it had a good end, had a happy ending. So maybe it's not a bad thing to pick a fight with Krishna. Of course, we don't recommend it, but because it's with Krishna, it always has a good ending. But we thought we would discuss something about Indra's enmity with the idea of seeing if we could in any way identify with Indra in that mentality in some way, and then learn from that. So a lot of times when we read the stories about Krishna or Lord Ram or any of the avatars, we don't really pay much attention to the enemies of Krishna, other than we think, oh, they're enemies. And usually the enemies get chastised, reprimanded, sometimes killed, and we think, oh, okay, that they deserve that, and so forth. Krishna comes to save his devotees and chastise the non-devotees. But what we fail to do often is to identify with some of the bad qualities of these asuras, non-devotees, demons, atheists, whatever you want to call them, because they exhibit, maybe to a more extreme degree, but they exhibit qualities which we have that we need to work on, be aware of, correct, heal. So I thought we could, look at Indra's position, maybe a little bit in that light, and ask you if you see any of those tendencies within yourself, and you could maybe you could become more aware. So Indra's position is interesting because Indra is the head of the demigods, and demigods means, supposed to mean, like God. So naturally the question would arise, how could someone who is supposed to be like God and who is deputed in the administration, in God's administration as a demigod in charge of the reign, how could he turn against Krishna? And that seems almost unbelievable or inconceivable, doesn't it? That doesn't he know who Krishna is? He tried to kill Krishna. He tried to kill the cows. He tried to kill the residents of Vrindavan. Doesn't he know the value of cows? Doesn't he know these are Krishna's devotees? Doesn't he know that this is Krishna? This morning I was reading a lecture that Prabhupada gave, 1966 maybe, on Govardhan Puja. And he was saying that when Krishna was here, hardly anybody knew who he was. They didn't know that he was God. Just a few, just a handful. And I was thinking, well, is it that Indra doesn't recognize Krishna's position because he became angry. And of course, that's a good reason. When you become angry with Krishna, you turn against him, then you can't understand him. Or did he not even know Krishna's position? And in this lecture, Prabhupada leaned towards he didn't actually understand. He understood Vishnu. He understood who God is, but not in this form. So, as you know, the story is interesting because it was Krishna who stopped the worship of Indra. He convinced his father. He asked his father, well, what are you doing? And they said, father said, we're worshiping Indra to get rain because we're farmers. We need rain. And Krishna said, if you just do your work, you just do your duty, then everything will come by your karma. You don't need to worship Indra. So Krishna was speaking atheism, basically. But why he was speaking that was because, as Prabhupada said, he saw that all his devotees are now worshiping Indra. And these are his devotees. And he's thinking, these are my devotees. These are Brajbasis. They're not supposed to worship Indra. They're my devotees. This is wrong. This is bad. Of course, Krishna knows everything. So he knew Indra would become upset. He already knew that. And anticipating Indra would become upset, then he knew, okay, now it's time for a lesson. We can teach him something, because you don't always teach by words. Sometimes you teach by lessons. And I'll give you an example. One time, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta saw that some of the disciples were becoming a little proud because they were collecting lots of money and they were getting lots of donations of grains and food and so forth. And they started thinking, because of my work, this mat, this temple is being maintained. And he saw that, and he wanted to teach him a lesson. He didn't say anything. He said, this week, no one will be going out for collecting, because they would go out and collect vegetables, grains, sugar, milk, and money to run the mat, because that's what brahmacharis do. Even the sannyasis did it. So he said, this week, no one will go out. You'll all stay back, do bhajan. And they were thinking, well, who's going to maintain the mat? And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta made a few connections. And then every day they would see vegetables coming, rice coming, milk coming, like that. Everything was being supplied. So without saying anything, he showed them, you're not maintaining this temple. This temple is going on by Krishna's desire. So sometimes a teacher feels that I can teach a better lesson by creating a situation where the student will learn. And that's what he did with Indra. So Krishna, he knew that when I stop this sacrifice, Indra's he's gonna retaliate. He's gonna show his pride. And so if we study the Srimad Bhagavatam, one thing we learn is that pride is very unappealing to Krishna. It's destructive to the relationship. But that's true in our own relationships. If we're trying to make friendship with an arrogant person, it's very unpalatable. And it's hard to have a close relationship if someone is arrogant, because everything's about them. Everything centers around them. Everything centers around them telling you how great they are, showing you how great they are. So it's not relishable. So in the same way that we don't like it, Krishna also doesn't like it. But especially, it is humility is the ornament. Is one of the greatest ornaments for a devotee. So when a devotee lacks humility, it's like poison for the relationship. It's like poison on his body. So you'll see that whenever a devotee becomes proud, you'll see in the Bhagavatam, Krishna will come and curb the pride somehow or other. This is something he does all the time. He even did it. You remember the story where Krishna and the cowherd boys came begging for Krishna and Balaram. And they went to the home of the Brahmins, and the Brahmins were doing yagyas. And they didn't want to stop their yagyas to give any donation to Krishna and Balaram, but the wives gave. And later on, when they realized their mistake, they were like demeaning themselves. They had big realization is that our wives are so much more advanced than we are. And we thought we were these big Brahmins, scholars, expert in puja. So it was another way that they learned. They became humble. And so Krishna did it to Brahma. Brahma went to see him, and he got there, and they said, "Tell him Brahma's here." And Krishna sent a message. Which Brahma? Because Brahma didn't know there were other Brahmas. Mahatma Prabhu's here. Which Mahatma Prabhu? And then I start to think, oh, maybe I'm not as great as I thought I was. So, and then Krishna showed him all the other Brahmas, and some had more heads than he had. And then we remember the story of Brahma stealing the cows and cowherd boys. And again, because Krishna manifested the cows and cowherd boys, that bewildered Brahma. And then Brahma understood that he had made a huge mistake. He apologized. Then we know with the gopis also, Krishna left them. They were becoming a little proud. He doesn't like his devotees to be proud. So Krishna, as you know, when Krishna does one thing, he teaches many things, and he does many things with one action. So chastising Indra was an important part of this Leela. And it's important. We have to make it important. It is important, but we have to make it important because we could overlook it. And it was important for Indra, but it's important for us. Because if you study Krishna conscious philosophy carefully and deeply, you will find that pride and all the corollaries of pride, like arrogance, disrespect, criticism, offense, and so forth, are major, major stumbling blocks to becoming pure or to pure devotional service. And it's something that's so ingrained in the conditioned heart of all of us. And I studied a little bit about this topic from the teachings of Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta. And he was so strict that if he was so strict, he wouldn't let anyone criticize anybody. He just wouldn't hear it. He wouldn't allow it. Even if there was a problem, he didn't want them to criticize. Then I heard a story. One of Prabhupada's senior devotees was criticized by another devotee. And Prabhupada got so angry when he criticized him because the criticism may have been just, but that devotee had done so much service, and that devotee was very dear to Prabhupada. And he just didn't want that to infiltrate in our organization because he saw it as a toxin, as a contaminant, which would destroy us individually and could destroy us as an organization. So humility, from Bhagavad Gita, humility is the first item of knowledge. And we know from the 4th chapter that to accept a guru, the first qualification is you have to go to the guru and say, okay, I don't know anything, enlighten me. You can't come to him and say, well, I'm pretty smart, but you could probably help me a little bit. And, maybe I'll follow some of your instructions if I like them and I feel like it. No, the first item is you have to approach with an empty glass. No, I'm a fool. That's why I have a physical body. If I wasn't a fool, I would already have gone back home, back to Godhead. I don't know how to do that. I need you. So it's considered the first item of knowledge, of all the items of knowledge in Bhagavad Gita, and the first quality to become a disciple. You have to fall dandavat. Tadvidi pari prashnena pari tadvidi pranipatena pari prashnena. So you have to fall. That falling means bowing down. That means humility. And the Prabhupada was asked, where is in the Shishastakam 8 prayers left by Lord Chaitanya? It doesn't seem like there's anything about accepting a guru, and accepting a guru is a fundamental spiritual practice. And Prabhupada was asked, where in the Shishastakam does it talk about accepting the Guru? And Prabhupada said, it's the third verse, Trinadapi Sunichina. You should be humble like a blade of grass, because that's how you approach the Guru. So that's interesting that Prabhupada saw that verse, third verse, as there's the Guru in humility. So this is the point, is you can't learn without humility, because you have to submit that you don't know everything and be willing to learn from someone who knows more than you and someone who's heard from a perfect source. And on the other side of that equation, you'll see that as a devotee develops his love for Krishna, his humility increases. So humility it's a byproduct of bhakti, but it's also the way you get bhakti. It's both. You need humility to get bhakti, and when you get it, humility manifests. So it's actually a symptom of love. And so that's why Krishna doesn't like it when his devotees become proud, because it's a contaminant. It's destructive to their bhakti. So Indra is the king. Indra means king. He's the head of the demigods. And for him to not be in good shape, so to speak, it's bad. And Krishna wanted to correct him. So Krishna talked his father, into not doing the yajna. He preached philosophy, not the right philosophy, but he preached philosophy, kind of an atheistic philosophy. And he said, if we do our work properly, then we'll get a good result. Like Krishna says, do your duty, do your duty and don't do someone else's duty. So basically Krishna was saying, well, just do your duty and you'll get your karma. And aside, if we're going to worship, why would we worship Indra? Because you do your duty, you'll get your rain anyway. It's better you worship Govardhan Hill, because that's where we get the grasses for the cows, and we get water and vegetables. And why don't we worship Govardhan Hill? So of course, Krishna is so charming that you can't refuse him. Have you ever met someone who's extremely charming, and so whatever they say, you'll just do it? So you could imagine Krishna, like who could refuse him, right? So his parents said, the coward men said, okay, we'll worship Govardhan. And so, Indra soon realized, where's all the yajna? I get it every year. I'm not getting it. And he found out what happened. And he thought, who is this arrogant boy? He didn't understand it was Krishna, somehow or other, inconceivably. We were talking in class, I think it was yesterday or last night, we were talking in class, how the verse Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti Mama Bijananti, Krishna says, you know me by bhakti. But the opposite is also true. If you turn against me, you can't know me. I don't know if you know this story, that Hanuman was in the forest and Ram was coming, and he thought he was expecting, I forget who he was expecting, maybe it was Vali. He was expecting an enemy. So he couldn't see exactly clearly who it was, and he started fighting him, and it was actually Ram. And he fought, and at some point he realized it was Ram. And he said, I can't believe that I didn't recognize you. And he asked Ram, how is that? He said, because you already had anticipated that I was an enemy. So you saw me as an enemy. And because you saw me as an enemy, you couldn't understand it was me. Isn't that interesting? That same thing happened. Krishna was fighting. Was it Jambavan? Krishna was fighting. Wrestling, couldn't understand. Was it Jambavan he was fighting? He couldn't the Shaimataka jewel story. And then Krishna
Yes,
came.
Prabhu.
Was it? What?
Yes. Yes, Jambavan.
Yes.
So Jambavan is a devotee, but he was angry, and then he couldn't understand. And he only understood through fighting, because Krishna took that as service. He liked to fight, and he became purified. So I don't know if you ever had the misfortune of listening to an atheist give his arguments, but it's very educational. Because when you listen to their arguments, you start thinking, I can't believe anybody would think like this. This is so unreasonable. And one of the things that you see, and you see this clearly if you ever listen to a debate with an atheist, you can see that the concept of God, it angers them and it upsets them that anyone would believe in God. It doesn't sit right with them. You can see it in their emotion, you can see it in their face. And when the theist makes arguments, you can see how upsetting it is for them. So you can really see this hatred in their heart. And they just want to finish God from the universe. They don't want anyone to believe in him. They want to use science and just wipe out God, prove that God is, you don't need God. God is irrelevant. You can do everything through science. Science is proven. The creation has come out by accident, natural selection, et cetera, and that proves definitely there's no God. Just forget him. Just throw him off the cliff. We don't need him. That's what they're trying to do. There's this anger and hatred towards God that's very, very deep. I have some bad news for you. That anger and hatred towards God is not only the property of non-devotees and atheists and asuras and demons. It also is in the heart of devotees. One time, Satsvarupa Maharaj asked Prabhupada something like, Krishna is so attractive. He's so beautiful. He's so everything good. And we're trying to be devotees. Why is it that we're not attracted? It doesn't make any sense. Why am I attracted to so many things other than Krishna when Krishna is all attractive and I'm trying to be a devotee and I'm practicing, I'm doing sadhana. And Prabhupada said, because you hate Krishna. Wow. That's pretty heavy, isn't it? That we're thinking, oh, it was only, Kamsa that hated Krishna. Of course, this hatred is much more subtle and obviously not so conscious and not manifest through trying to kill the residents of Vrindavan and do other such things. But it's there also. And I think it's worth noting that, we see what Indra's doing and we can't believe that Indra is so foolish that he would, and so angry that he would try to kill the residents of Vrindavan. But we can think in the same way. When we run after sense gratification, it's also extremely foolish because we know it's wrong. And it's a manifestation of that competition with Krishna that, I have an issue with Krishna. What's your issue? He's God and I'm not. That's my issue. I have to go into therapy with Krishna. I have issues with him. Well, he's beautiful. I'm not. He's rich and I'm not. He's got all the girls and I don't. He can do anything he wants and I have to work, 10 hours a day. I have issues with him. I want to be like him. Well, why don't you serve him? Well, I want to be served. This isn't fair. Why do you create this world and all these problems? So that's the manifestation of our hatred. It's still there. Everything that we want in this world that is not directly in Krishna's service, but more in the service of our sense gratification, that's some manifestation of hatred or envy, however you want to frame it, or you can use more polite words like maybe we're trying to imitate him. Maybe that resonates more with you. I can see I'm like a little god or little goddess. I want my little kingdom. So now Indra gets upset. Who is this boy that stopped this worship? This goes on every year. Now this boy comes on the scene and he ruins everything. It's like, they have this joke. I don't know if you know this. It's like the Indian, he comes to America, right? And then he opens a shop and everything in the shop is like a third of the price of the other shops. And he puts everyone out of business and everybody hates him. Because Indians don't do business with big markups like we do, like American business people, You buy something in China for $3, you sell it for $39. And, you put a little money into advertising, but the Indian buys it for $3 and he sells it for $5 or $6 or $7. So this is the same product. And all those other companies go out of business. So it's like, I hate you. So, I was doing great in business till you showed up, So it was kind of like that with Indra. It's like I was doing fine, and now you show up and you ruin everything. So he got extremely angry. Inconceivable how angry he became. He became so angry that he wanted to kill everyone in Vrindavan. He just wanted to finish Krishna off. Can you imagine the level of anger? That's insane. And so sometimes you will hear a story of someone who is very elevated spiritually, who makes a huge mistake. Great yogis, Vishwamitra Muni or Subari, or you Chaivana, and you hear these great yogis, and then they meet some beautiful girl. I mean, this is all divinely arranged for a reason, or maybe divinely arranged to fulfill their inherent desire. But they're meditating for like 60,000 years, and then one unfortunate day, some apsara is walking in the forest, and her ankle bells breaks his meditation, and then it's all over. Great movie, great Bollywood movie. 60,000 years as a celibate, and only took 3 minutes of one apsara, and you look at that and you think, how is that possible? I can't believe that. And that's happened in ISKCON. We've had some very, very advanced devotees who somehow or other got deviated from their bhakti. And it was like inconceivable. Nobody could believe that didn't really happen. It's like, did that really happen? I don't believe it. Yeah, it happened. I can't believe it. No, it didn't happen. No, it did, Prabhu. And you spend days and weeks trying to understand, how could that happen? What did they do? They were so advanced. Their classes were amazing. They inspired so many people. And so it shows the depth. I think what we see in this story, it shows the depth of contamination in the heart. It's like there's stuff in there that maybe, fortunately, you haven't accessed it, but be careful. It could come out. If the right stimulus is there, it could come out. I think you've probably seen that sometimes. Sometimes I'll get a letter from a devotee. They're not entirely serious, but it's not that there's not some seriousness to it. And someone will offend them, deeply offend them. And they'll tell me something in so many words like, right now I feel like killing this person. Not that they're, going out to buy a gun or anything, but that feeling comes up, or like, I wish this person wasn't alive. Just some very, very horrible feeling. Or a man sees a beautiful woman and he starts thinking, I like to run off with this woman. And he's married and he's got 3 kids. And it's like totally insane. So I think one of the things we learned from Indra is that we need to be careful. And because there's contamination in our heart. And if we're not careful, it can come out. So Srila Prabhupada, he gave us a program of sadhana, daily sadhana, everyday chant, everyday study, do a little puja, associate with devotees like that. And he told us over and over again, he said, if you do this, you'll be fine. And if you don't do it, it's kind of like he said, and if you don't do it, good luck. I can't guarantee anything. It's kind of like your doctor saying, well, you've got like high cholesterol and you should really take these statins. And if you don't, if you get a heart attack or kidney failure or a stroke, don't say I didn't warn you. It was a Prabhupada. It was kind of like that. Like, you have to do this sadhana because you don't realize like the potential inside of you for doing something wrong, something sinful. It's there. So we get that from Indra. So now Krishna uses this to enact his Leela. So Krishna's, he's upset with Indra, but at the same time, he's now 7 days, 7 nights with the residents of Braja. So he's pretty blissful, right? So it's not like the whole 7 days he's thinking, how could Indra do that? I don't believe it. He's a demigod. I trusted him. And it wasn't like that. But as Krishna was doing it, he knew Indra is going to see what's happening. It didn't work. This boy is not some little boy. So at some point, Indra understood, I just made the biggest mistake of my life. I tried to kill devotees and I turned against the Supreme Lord. So, Indra was going, everyone's telling him, Indra, you blew it big time, basically. That's what. So Indra, he wanted to apologize, and he didn't think Krishna would accept his apology because what he did was so bad. So he decided he would get a Sarabi cow. He got a Sarabi cow because Sarabi cows are dear to Krishna. And the Sarabi cow would petition on his behalf. And he felt like Krishna will listen to the Sarabi cow. So that's what they did. It's a long story. And different demigods came, and the Sarabi cow offered milk, and the puja was done. And he prayed to Krishna. This was the first time the name Govinda was ever used in these prayers. He used these, and where he prayed is on the foot of Govardhan Hill, and there's a kunda there, and it's called Govinda Kunda because that's where Indra came and addressed Krishna as Govinda. And Krishna was taking this kind of seriously because he wanted to humble Indra. So he said, you should go to Navadvip and do austerities. Like what you just can't like walk away from this. Like, okay, thanks for the puja, thanks for all the milk, and well, it was nice seeing you, and have a good day. Nothing. It wasn't like that. It was like, no, we have a problem here. You have to purify yourself because you became proud, and this pride is poison to your heart. And I want you to go to Navadvip and do austerity. Now, the cure for your disease is austerity. So now what makes this story amazing, Krishna's trying to purify him, so he wouldn't do this again. But as you may know, he did it again, not something as bad. But Krishna went to Indra's planet to get a parijata tree for, I believe it was Satyabhama. She wanted one. And Indra, he asked Indra, and Indra said, no, I'm not giving. And then, you're thinking, after all that he went through, and now he's refusing to give a tree to Krishna, like one tree, like that really matters. So now he's becoming possessive and controlling again. So there's a story. Well, let me explain why this happened. This is interesting why it happened. It's so relevant. The reason it happened was because when he apologized to Krishna, it wasn't a complete apology. It wasn't 100%. And if you get cancer and the doctor says, okay, operation was success. Did you get rid of the cancer? Doctor said 75% is gone. You'll be frightened. Like, I can't go on with still 25% of the cancer. So it was something like that. His apology was like 75%. It wasn't full. And that's why this incident happened with the parijata, because he hadn't completely purified him. He wasn't fully remorseful and purified. So there's still this competitive proudness there. And there's another story like this. You remember the story of Durvasa and Ambarish Maharaj. No, excuse me, not that. The story of Shiva and Daksha. And so Lord Shiva had offended Daksha. No, excuse me, Daksha had offended Lord Shiva. And a horrible scene ensued. The followers of Lord Shiva were defending Lord Shiva. The followers of Daksha were defending Daksha. And there was a fight. And it became violent. Cursing, counter cursing. Don't fight with a Brahmin. They may be small, but they can curse you. They'll throw some mantra at you, and that's it. That's stronger than a punch. So what happened in the fighting, Daksha lost his head, and then they thought, this is not good. So he was given the blessing was given that you could put another head on his head and he'll live. And apparently there was no human head, and so there was a goat head. I believe it was a goat head, right? Was it a goat? Yeah. So, you know, it was quite a lesson. You get your head chopped off in a goat head for offending a devotee. You know, you'd think, okay, I'm not going to do that again. I can imagine, you know, someone chopped your head off and they put it back on. You go, I'm not going to mess with this person again. He's dangerous. So, so, uh, so the way the story goes is that in the next life, Daksha had given birth to, I think the first batch was like 1,000 sons. Don't ask me how he gave birth to 1,000, but he did. And he had given birth to this quantity of sons because his job was to help populate the universe. So these would be what are called prajapatis, those who would have many children. That was his service. And then Narada Muni saw them doing austerities and he thought, well, you're doing austerities so you can get married and have lots of children. It would be better that you continue doing austerities and just stay single because it'll be simpler and you have the power to do austerity. So better don't get entangled to keep your life simple. You can use your whole life for spiritual life. And they did. It made sense to them. And Daksha became angry. So then he gave birth to another, I think, 100. It was first 1,000, then 100, or first 100, then 1,000. I think it was first 1,000. And so he gave birth to more sons. They went out, they did the austerity. And Narada Muni just happened to be there, just somehow or other, you know, he knows where to go. He just happens to show up, right? To create his transcendental mischief. So the Narada Muni showed up, then he, you know, he told those sons the same thing, you know, you could get a job, Apple, or, you know, if you're really lucky, you can move to Seattle and work for Microsoft. But that's going to require a lot of work, a lot of education, a lot of trouble. And then you get married and you have kids and, you know, that could interfere with your life. So, you know, like, you know, it's kind of like with the Radhanath Swami brahmacharis preach at, you know, at IIT, you know, you could, you know, go ahead with a career, but this is, you know, this is nicer, you know, can live as a brahmachari, be free. And so they again agree with Narada Muni. So they went back and told their father, we're not going to get married. And he gave birth to them for the purpose of procreation, of populating the universe. So he, you know, he controlled himself the first time, but the second time, he just got really angry with Narada Muni. And if you know the story, Narada Muni didn't say anything because Narada Muni thought, well, just let him vent. But anyway, he was offending Narada Muni. I don't know if Narada Muni took offense, but anyway, he was offending him. And in one of the commentaries, it says exactly the same thing that happened with Indra. It said that when he apologized to Lord Shiva, it wasn't a full apology. He hadn't rid himself of all his resentment and all that contamination. So it came up again in the next life, which is so interesting. If you don't get rid of it in one life, it's not like you're going to take birth with a clean slate. I think a lot of us think, well, if I just make it through this life, you know, and tolerate all my bad qualities, then when I take birth in my next life, then I'll just take birth as a pure devotee and have no bad qualities. Well, if any of you have children and they were devotees from birth, you know that's not entirely true. It's definitely an advantage, but still they have, you know, they have their samskaras and their karma. So I think this is very instructive for us. And one of the lessons that I get from this, aside from the fact that contamination goes very deep, is that whatever you're working with, you know, whatever you're trying to overcome, whatever it is, resentment or envy or pride, lust, greed, whatever you're working with, the goal should be to rid yourself entirely of it in this life. Don't, you know, if you can, if it's at all possible, don't think that, you know, when I take birth the next time, it's going to be gone. Or, I mean, you know, Krishna can remove it in the last week of our life. I don't doubt that. But at least we should understand from these stories that There's a lot of stuff there. Am I supposed to stop now for questions? Is that the schedule? Or did I go too
No,
long or what?
no, you could continue.
Yeah, let's just have a little bit more. We can finish the story. So Indra apologizes and everything seems to be good. And as we said, then he makes this mistake again. So I think it's a lesson for us that when Krishna is correcting somebody, we should kind of identify with that person a little bit. Say, why is he correcting them? What's going on? And do I have something in me like that? So I just want to speak for a moment. We didn't actually speak on the exact topic of, don't become Krishna's enemy. But I think that's obvious. We don't want to become Krishna's enemy. But I think the point is sometimes we become his enemy and we're not even conscious that we are. We don't realize it. But one thing that I've noticed in my practice of Krishna consciousness is that sometimes it's hard to notice some of our mistakes. It's hard to admit it. Sometimes it's hard to notice some of our bad qualities. And I was meditating maybe 3 weeks ago about the word introspection and how important introspection is. And introspection means to be self-aware, to understand where I'm at, understand what I need to work on, what I need to improve. And I think introspection, and in a sense, it's almost synonymous with humility, because humility means to be introspective. Humility means to understand your own faults and where you need to work, what you need to work on. And there are many reasons this is important. Obvious reasons are if we don't know what the problem is, we can't solve it. Another reason is it's difficult to work with people who don't recognize their problems, because if their problems are causing relationship issues or in some way it's harming other devotees, you can't tell them because they won't accept it. So one of the qualities, especially for a leader, whether it's a leader of a temple, organization, a home, anything, is to be somewhat vulnerable, being willing to admit faults, to have that ability to look at oneself, to not like even sometimes we pretend to ourselves. I'm pretending to you I'm fine. I may know I'm not fine, but I want to pretend to you I'm fine because I have a big false ego. But sometimes I pretend to myself I'm fine when I'm not. And so if I'm pretending to myself, how will I understand where I need to improve? And if I'm pretending to myself, then nobody can tell me that I made a mistake because I'll deny it. And then I become difficult to work with. So introspection, the willingness, we could just say the willingness to look at what we need to improve, and then the willingness to actually do the work. That's very important. And another thing that we learned from Indra, and I have experience of this from doing workshops, is that all of us are dealing with the same problem. So, the problem Indra had, we all have that problem to some degree. We're all proud a little bit, right? Sometimes Krishna, has anything ever happened to you and you got angry with Krishna? How could you do that? It happens to us sometimes, like some disaster. How could you? So we have this, we're not going to, kill anybody, but we have. And so self-awareness it's extremely important. The problem that we've seen, and I'm sure this is a problem in all religious movements, I would bet 100% from what I know of other religious movements, is that when someone becomes religious and they're praying, they're doing puja, they're doing all the right things, sometimes they become oblivious to mistakes they're making because they think, well, I'm chanting and I'm reading the Bhagavatam, all my food I'm offering before I eat, I'm giving money to the temple. It's like I'm doing all the right things. And they somehow or other think because I'm doing that, then everything else I do is also good. And they become oblivious to the sometimes bad things they do. It goes something like the equation, it's kind of almost like a mathematical equation. It goes something like this. A devotee is good. I'm a devotee, therefore I am good. And because I'm good, therefore everything I do is good, even when it's not good. And even when it's not good, I think it's good because I think everything I do is good because everything a devotee does is good because devotees are good. And or another equation happens, and this another problem we've seen. It's not, I'm not directly quoting from Shastra. I mean, I probably could find something, but it's a phenomena that we've seen many times in ourselves and in others. If I excel in my service, then that somehow in my mind becomes synonymous to spiritual advancement when it may not be at all. It may just be that I'm good at something. Or, I had the resources to do it. I had a good team and therefore we were successful. And if we're successful, that must translate into, well, we're Krishna conscious. That's why we're successful. Sometimes it's true. You won't be successful if you're not Krishna conscious, but materially speaking, it's possible to not be Krishna conscious and not be as Krishna conscious as you need to be and be successful and then think, I'm successful, so I must be Krishna conscious. So these are some traps, and these are some things that I think we could learn from our friend Indra. And let me say one more thing. And this is what makes this story so sad. Krishna, as you know, is Rasaraj. So, or Rashika Shikara. And to put that simply, what that means is that Krishna, he is the full embodiment, manifestation of love. Anything that emanates from him is love, even if it doesn't look like it. And he hankers more than anyone for loving relationships. Even though he's God, he hankers for loving relationships. So I often say that, the problem in the relationship we have with Krishna is that Krishna is doing everything. He can't do anything else. He's offering love. He's offering everything. There's nothing more he can do. The problem's on our side. We're not reciprocating. So you can imagine, put yourself in Krishna's position. He wants this relationship. He's sending the spiritual master. He's giving us the scripture. He's providing, he's guiding us all the time from within. He wants it, as Prabhupada said, much more than we want it. And so what's the problem? The problem is with us. We're not reciprocating. And what to speak of not reciprocating, sometimes we turn against him. So how horrible is that? Somebody's trying to love you and you're kind of turning your back on them and saying, I really don't care, I'd rather kind of, I'm okay without you. So that's the sad part, that Krishna actually wants it. It's not like, okay, if you don't want it, he doesn't want it. No, you don't want it, but he wants it. No matter how much you don't want it, it doesn't change him. He just can't reciprocate because there's nothing to reciprocate with. But he wants it always. And so it's such a tragedy if we turn away from him. So I think we can end here. And then if there's any discussion or questions, then we could take them at this time. What time do you want to end?
Prabhuji, generally our talk goes until 8:30. It can even go over that.
Okay.
And then followed by question and answers, which are as long as the speaker can take or the questions in, whichever comes first. But before we go into Q&A, I'd like to just make a couple of announcements.
Okay.
One is I want to welcome everybody today. Happy Diwali, happy Govardhan Puja, and especially welcome those who are joining us for the first time. I've posted our website, our YouTube channel, and our Facebook page. You can like us. You can join us on our Facebook page, so you can get updates on our upcoming programs. Also, I would like to announce our next Wednesday Sangha is our last session of the 10 offenses against the holy name, which will be again continued by His Grace Das Gadadhar Prabhuji. And it's the final 10th offense, not to have complete faith in the holy name, still maintain material attachments after hearing so much on this matter, on this subject. So we'll have that on Wednesday. And next Sunday, we have His Grace Pancharatna Prabhuji, Prabhupada disciple, joining us from Mayapur. He's also going to be speaking on our forum for the first time. So we're very excited to host him. And right after the question and answers, we have a wonderful presentation put together by Ram Sharan Prabhu called Fireworks of Gratitude. Please hang on. And his recommendation is that if you have a laptop or a bigger screen, watch it there just to do the proper justification. On your cell phone, it may not show up that good. So any questions, anyone?
I think I want to make an announcement also before I forget. I have a website, which is easy to remember. It's just mahatmadas.com. And on that website, we have created some online courses. And we have we have a couple courses on forgiveness. We're in the process of finishing a course on japa, a course on sexual purity, a course on vows, and something that you may be interested in, Ramachandra. We just finished a course. Now we're putting it up online. There's a few final details, which is geared for new people, which takes 7 aspects of Krishna consciousness in 50 videos and maybe 100 documents with exercises also. So that'll be coming up in the future. So everything that I do can be accessed through my website, my Facebook page, and YouTube, and all the things we're doing. So this is a project that's just manifested in the last few days. It's a certain platform. It's a support platform where we have courses and articles, blogs, videos, audio, and then we have groups within that forum. It's a certain platform where you're not only, it looks like kind of like a combination of website and Facebook. You're not, you're in the platform to study a topic, but there's groups also. You can ask questions, get answers. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be fantastic. And I also have some books that you can get on Amazon. And you can also just type my name and Amazon, you'll see it. Or you can go to my website, because I always forget to advertise because it's not my nature. So when I remember, I have to say it.
I just posted the link on the chat so everybody has it, and they're probably looking at it right now.
We have classes at 8 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then various classes on the weekends. And that's all on my Facebook page, and you can sign up to get notifications. I do a video every day. I've done it for 3 years. It's all usually on practical things. So you can get it on my Facebook page, or you can sign up for notification and get that. And I think that's it for now. Okay, so yeah, we'll take questions if there are any. You can ask them or you can chat them.
Yeah, I'll start with one. Just this morning, we were reading daily for this month, Karthik. We are doing the Krishna book, 1 chapter a day. And today's chapter was prayers offered by Lord Brahma to Krishna after the stealing of the boys and calves. And we see that Bhumi came to Lord Brahma, and Brahmaji goes to Vishnu and he prays for help, and he says, I'll come, and you go and tell all the demigods to appear. And Brahmaji is announcing to all the demigods that all of you with your wives appear in this material world. The Supreme Lord is appearing. My first question was that I guess when he said all the demigods, it probably didn't include Indra, because Indra was not here. And Brahmaji himself didn't come either. but also after announcing that he's, sorry, you were trying to,
Well, you know, initially Krishna's eternal associates appeared on the higher planets, and then that's how they came to Earth, through the higher planets, not directly. So they appeared as demigods. So I've always understood it was, though, you know, you can't just join Krishna Lila without some qualification. So it was those eternal associates who took birth in heavenly planets and then came down. But you know, Krishna can engage other demigods, but that was my understanding. It
Right.
was, that's just how they came down.
and so you spoke so much about humility, and I was thinking that here Lord Brahma is telling them you appear, he's coming, and then he forgets, Indra forgets that it's their Lord. And then when they realize, they take a very humble position. And many times we think, what is our, what to say about us? I mean, Lord Brahma, the creator, has done it, my father has done it, so it's okay for me to do. Or even if I become humble and I take the courage to beg for forgiveness from somebody I may have offended, but the very next moment, uh, we forget that humility. And my question is that when you were with Srila Prabhupada, and when even Srila Prabhupada was present, not developing that familiarity, or even after Srila Prabhupada left, and the other senior God brothers and sisters not to develop that familiarity and commit offenses, how do we, if you could share something that to maintain that humility, respect, at the same time,
Well,
maintain the leadership role?
when he left, I don't think we did a good job in the humility department. I was not initially. Um, I was reading something someone said that was so interesting and so true. And it must have been an article talking about some of the difficulties devotees face, both individually and socially. And they were saying, when Prabhupada was here, we were we were so ecstatic. We kind of transcended our nature. It's like we didn't have a lot of problems that we had after he left. I mean, they were there, but we transcended them. You know, we got along. We didn't fight. We did austerities. We gave up so much of the things we like to do, and as Prabhupada said, do this. Okay, so I like to write. I'm not going to write. I like to do this and that. Then I'm not going to do it because he wants me to go out and distribute books. So the devotee was saying, because of the atmosphere Prabhupada created, we were able to do like almost the impossible. And then after he left, a few years later, it's like that nature started coming out. The pride, the desire to do this service, you know, all the things we repressed. You know, that's when most of the men got married, you know, a few years after Prabhupada left, like the rough and tough brahmacharis, you know. The movement got whitewashed, so to speak, you know. All these things were happening. So um, I don't think we got it. It took much more. We were all young also, and young people are not famous for being humble. And there were a few devotees who were extremely humble. And I always thought they must have been born that way. And for the rest of us, we can't relate to it. And I think the process of getting older, not just becoming more Krishna conscious, has helped us. Because as you get older, you start caring a little bit less about what people think, and you see the value of vulnerability. And one devotee told me that the management gurus say vulnerability is the number one quality for a leader. And Prabhupada was vulnerable. Prabhupada said lots of things about his life, about his grihastha life, you know, just very open, sometimes in a Bhagavatam class. I really didn't like my wife very much. I wanted to go to England, marry a British woman. You know, it's like if some sannyas, if your Guru Maharaj said that, you know, actually before I took sannyas, I was thinking maybe I'd just, you know, get a second wife or something. You'd be devastated. You'd think, how could I, you know, so I think what happened in ISKCON was this like, this unstated assumption that leaders are supposed to be perfect and we have to present ourselves as perfect. And if we're vulnerable, it's a weakness and people would lose faith in us. But it's not true. It's actually the opposite. And we have proof of that. Because Prabhupada was vulnerable sometimes. He would break down in a class and start crying about something, you know. So I think it's important to understand that, because that was not something, vulnerability was not something that was very strong in ISKCON. And I don't think it's still, it's probably stronger now, but it was kind of seen as like taboo of some sort. Like, you know, who would have faith in me if I told them, you know, some dark secret about myself? It's not that you sit on the Vyasasana and, you know, tell everybody every sinful thing you did. But to be able to admit that I have weaknesses, it's important. I think that's why so many people like Satsvarup Mahashoy's books, because that's what he was doing. And what I've seen from all the workshops I've done is that devotees often do not think that the problems they have are common problems. They tend to think they're unique to them. And that's why they're sometimes afraid to talk about them, because if I'm the only one that has it, it's embarrassing to talk about it. But in the workshops we do a lot of introspection, we do a lot of sharing, and then people start to see we all have the same problems. We're all in the same boat. And it really helps us, because it's not about not having problems. It's about dealing with them, tolerating them, healing them, purifying them. So I think that's important. And I for one, would like to see more vulnerability in the public eye. I know it's probably not the culture of gurus generally in India. It's more like ride in on an elephant, you know, in an umbrella type thing, isn't it? But Prabhupada, you know, he broke that mold. He was, you know, they built him a Vyasasana. He's like, you want me to sit on that? I don't feel qualified. He would always say, I'm not qualified to spread this movement. It's the mercy of my guru. He always spoke in a very grounded way. So I think that's important. I don't know if that even addressed what you were asking. And in fact, I forgot what you were asking. How do we become humble? The answer was, it took a long time. And I can't speak for anyone else, because then it sounds like I'm saying they're not humble. So let me speak for myself. My realization about humility was that you had to purify your heart to even have the desire to be humble. Because the desire to be, you know, recognized as, you know, if you ask the sannyasis, most of them, why did you take sannyas? At least 50% will say for prestige, not because I mean, obviously they wanted to serve, but there were other motives there. That's not a reason to take sannyas. So as young people, we had this motive also. But as our hearts became purified and we started to understand, this is actually poison. To want to be recognized and honored, it's poison for our Krishna consciousness. And then our hearts became more open, and then we became more receptive to all the things Prabhupada said about humility. And I had this very interesting experience. I met a very humble devotee, and it really went deep in my heart that this is how I want to be. This is how I should be. This is really what it means to be Krishna conscious. By that association, just by seeing that devotee, it hit me deep in the heart. Now, I was living in Vrindavan at that time, so I was in a very, probably the best state of Krishna consciousness I'd ever been in my life. And so it immediately made an impression in my heart. And I developed this desire to become humble, which was much different than my previous desire, because kind of a lot of the idea for us is we want to move up the corporate ISKCON ladder and be somebody, you know, because my godbrother took sannyas and he's a temple president, he's a GBC. What am I? I'm still washing the pots. I'm a loser, you know, so we want to move up. And that's very, very strong. And it had become a culture even. So my realization was, I had been a devotee maybe 30 years at that point. It like took me 30 years just to have the desire, just to like look at humility and say, you know, that looks good. It never looked good to me before. It was just theory. I could give the class and say you should be humble, but it's like it looked good, meaning it became an emotion. I actually wanted it. And so my realization was it may take us decades before we develop a quality, because it may take decades to even want that quality or even want to pay the price to get it. You want to pay the price to get humility. That means you stop trying to push yourself forward and be some and show yourself off. And you just become a servant of everyone. That's it. You're a servant of the newest person that comes. You'll clean the toilet if you have to. And us 20-year-old puffed up, they're like, I don't want to clean the toilet. I did that for the first 3 months as a bhakta. Let the new bhakta do it. I want to give the class. I want to be important. So that was my experience. It took me 30 years to even like the idea of humility. And here's the funny part of the story. After that happened, I thought, this is so funny, but it's so instructive. I thought, I thought humility is so important because I was starting to understand it. And I thought, why didn't Prabhupada stress humility? Why didn't he stress humility? I couldn't understand it. I said, because before that, I thought he didn't. And so I said, well, let me go through his books and see, how much did he talk about humility? That was like 10 million times, but I didn't see it. Isn't that interesting? I thought he wasn't actually teaching much about humility because I wasn't looking for it. I didn't want it. And so, it's like you read the Bhagavatam. You're a man. What do you read the Bhagavatam? What do you remember? The woman should serve her husband. She should be chaste and submissive. What about all the things about the husband should serve the wife? Oh, I didn't read that. Was that in there? It's like you only remember what you're ready for. You read the paragraph and you only pick out what you're ready for. So that was a huge revelation when I saw I thought, oh my God, Prabhupada's been talking about humility ever since I joined, and I thought he wasn't. I never picked up on it because I didn't have any radar for it. So that was my realization that sometimes it takes years before you even want to develop a quality, and until you want to develop it, it's not going to happen very quickly. You have to actually want it. Do you want to be humble, or do you want to show respect to everybody? Is that what you really want to do? You want to be like, I want to be the one who shows respect. And when we're making announcements about all the great service that everyone's did, do you want to be the one who you hope they forget to announce your name, even though you did more service than anybody? That's not everybody's ready for that. I have a class in humility. So I asked a question. I said, have you ever been in an award ceremony or appreciation ceremony, and you were the leader of some project or program that's getting awarded and applauded and recognized, and you were the one who did the most and worked the hardest, and they forgot to mention your name? Have you ever been in that situation? Everybody says, yeah, that happened to me. I said, how did you feel? And they all said, horrible, horrible, horrible. And I said, and when you develop humility, you'll say, thank God they didn't mention my name. I'm so relieved. Then you'll be happy. So until that day that you're going to be happy when you do everything and no one mentions your name, you're not going to see all those purports about humility. You're not going to relate to it. It's not going to mean anything to you. So that's my realization. And I think we did a bad job in the humility department after Prabhupada left. And this is interesting because when your guru is present, you're able to do a lot of things that become harder to do when he goes, because that atmosphere is not there. Anyone who's lost their guru will know that. And all of us as Prabhupada disciples know that. It was like when he was there, it was like Vaikuntha. It's like we couldn't fail. And then he left and it was like, okay, plane is descending. Now you have to yourself get back up there. You were being pulled up there. You have to do more work now to get it. The mercy is still there, but you have to earn it. So that's my realization. And if we come to the point where it feels good to be humble, it's our normal position. We're okay being human, and being a human being with their faults in the association of devotees. Of course, we want to set a good example, but not hiding our humanness, our vulnerability. It will help the other devotees a lot. I actually go out of my way sometimes to be human because I feel it's missing in ISKCON a little bit. And so I feel, especially as an older devotee, it's important to show that. And Prabhupada showed it all the time. Someone would be, they'd be walking in the temple and there'd be a woman in front of him with a kid, and he would just open the door for her. The big rough tough sannyasis would never do that. The 22-year-old sannyasis, they would just like trample over them. So Prabhupada showed, yeah, I'm the big guru, but let me open the door. I'm the big guru. Let me serve everyone, cook and serve them and clean their plates in 26 Second Avenue. He did it all. So I think that's important. And when we can do that, yeah, that's good. When you're grihasta, your wife wants you to take out the trash, wash the dishes, make the bed, this and that, and you're thinking, but I'm so-and-so, Prabhu. How can you ask me to do that? No, you think, okay, this is good. Because I think I'm so-and-so, Prabhu, I don't want to do it. I'm glad she's asking me now. I can just be like a normal human being, not somebody special. So that's a big advantage of grihastha life. But I know a lot of men, they reject it. But I would just say you should take it in a positive way. It gives you a chance. Gives you a chance to test, how humble are you? Well, I don't do anything a woman says, I'm a real devotee. No, it's not like that. Some men think that's the measure of their Krishna consciousness. I'm not a henpecked husband. I don't do what my wife says. No, it's not like that. It's the opposite. If you're actually humble, you'll respect your wife. You'll respect her opinion. You'll want to make her happy. So that's my realization. I don't know if everyone agrees with that or someone has their own realization. It's personal for me.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Prabhuji, because, and I'll try to never forget one thing that you just mentioned, which is if somebody forgets to recognize you, thank that I'm glad that they didn't recognize me, and take a humble position. And most of the cases I've seen, it is not knowingly that somebody does that. It's usually when there's a big list, one may just kind of miss out, or and if it is knowingly, then it's even better to be humble. That somebody's trying to step on me, and let me just take a humble position.
Ramachandra, that happened to me today. Driving in the temple, we have a devotee, and we ask you, you've been out of state, you've been in an airport, you have to sign your name and number. And my daughter does service every Sunday. So when she got to the temple, I said, did they stop you? She said, no, they know me, which means he didn't know me. And I was thinking, it's so nice not to be known, because most places I go, oh, Mahatma Prabhu, I'm uncomfortable with that. It's not my nature. I don't like that. So actually, I like it. Occasionally I've gone to places and nobody knew me. I forget where it was. It was somewhere. And I told my daughter, I said, this is the first place I've ever been that nobody knows who I am. I said, this feels so good. I can just be me and nobody even knows, So that has taken me many years to come to that point, Otherwise, if I was proud and nobody knew me, I was like, let's leave this place. They're not treating me right. Yeah. Anyway, we have work to do.
I've experienced the same thing, especially in India, when I've gone to like bigger temples like Radha Rasbihari in Mumbai or other bigger temples, and not dressed in devotee clothes. So, I mean, first of all, I'm not known, but if I'm not in devotee clothes and you just, the security guard comes and just pushes you away and says, just move away. And
right.
at that time you're like, hey, I'm one of the devotees. I'm Hare Krishna. I'm not a tourist, but we just have to accept the rules of the place. Yeah.
I think if we're advancing properly and we're in the right consciousness, then any opportunity that affords itself to become more humble, we should just take it. That's we're supposed to learn humility and tolerance. The world will teach us humility and tolerance. So why should we reject it? It's, we're going to be humiliated. We're going to have to tolerate things. Why should we reject it? That's what we're here to learn. And you're not going to learn it unless you go along with it when it happens and go, okay, I'll take a humble position. Why not? Last night, we had this big Govardhan festival, about 25 devotees. And I was giving class at that time. So the feast was served out, everything. Then I went up to get the feast and they said, oh my God, we forgot to save you prasadam, you know? So it's like when I travel, I'm always the first one they serve, you know? So fortunately I wasn't that hungry. But immediately I said, okay, Krishna, this is just, I have to accept that. I didn't get mad or anything. And I thought, life is always teaching you, who would think, on Govardhan Puja, there wouldn't be any prasadam left. And they're like, oh my God, we forgot to save you. So I was like, okay, Krishna, there was a few scraps. This is all he wants me to eat. Okay, that's how we have to be, tolerant, Fortunately, I wasn't starving. If I was starving, probably would have been more of a problem. But still, it happens. Look at, even with Prabhupada, you had to deal with so many difficult people, difficult disciples. We had a godbrother who told Prabhupada, you have to chant 64 rounds or you can't go back to Godhead. Can you believe it? We had another godbrother. There was some bogus yogi. He was saying that he was God. This was in the 70s. His mother was saying he's God. And then his mother rejected him later. So actually he's not God. But during that time that he was saying he was God, one of Prabhupada's disciples went to that person and they wrote Prabhupada a letter and said, you should take shelter of this yogi. He's God. And so, Prabhupada had to put up with so much stuff. Just incredible. Okay, I'll tell you one story. And then maybe we can see the video, the show, the fireworks of appreciation. There's a story. Prabhupada was in a very humble mood. And he said to the devotees, he said, I would like you to open 108 temples. And if you open 108 temples, then I will feel that I have served my Guru Maharaj. And then I can, then I can die in peace. Can you do this, that I can die in peace? He didn't say, then I can die in peace. He said, I will feel like I have accomplished the mission of my Guru Maharaj, and then I can die and go to hell. That's what he said. Then I can die and go to hell. And Prabhupada was, he was like, now he would just slipped in, accidentally, wasn't careful. He slipped into his Mahabhagwat actual position. He's, and then he said, and the devotee said, well, Prabhupada, if you're going to hell, we want to go with you. That's where we'll go. And Prabhupada said, no, you're all going to Vaikuntha. I'm going to hell. You imagine that, right? Then Prabhupada said, another time he said, I do not consider you my disciples. I consider you my spiritual master. Because when I look at how you're serving me, I learn from you how I should serve my spiritual master. Then another time he said, I don't see you as my disciples because I serve you. My duty is to serve you. I see that I'm your servant. So, it's so interesting because all these things that Prabhupada said, they just went right over our head. And we were like, well, I'm number one, I'm the temple president. It's like, we're so conditioned by false ego. It took us years and years, decades and decades and decades. And also just getting older, it's mature people tend to be a little more humble. Not all, but life can do that. I asked Borijan Prabhu, how do you become humble? He goes, just live long enough. Life will beat you down. You'll be forced to be humble if you live long enough. You'll get old and your body will fall apart. Your mind will fall apart. Nothing to be proud of anymore. Okay, I think that's enough. Is that okay?
Yeah. Rukmavati just raised her hand. Can we take that as one last question or?
Special mercy for Rukmavati.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for the wonderful class. I had taken the intensive course, forgiveness course, and it really helped me. Thank you so much. Yeah. Fantastic. And I just have one question. I have a couple of questions, but I'll take one question now. What is the sign of humility?
That's an excellent question because if we look at the sign of humility as a byproduct of prema, that's something that if we try to emulate, we would be imitating. So there's the way I see it is there's humility as a byproduct of prema, and there's humility as a product of vaidhi sadhana, right? Because when Krishna's Kavara says, I feel lower than a worm in stool, if I say that, there's no point of reference in my life or experience for that emotion, because that emotion is a byproduct of prema. And because I don't have prema to say that, it would just confuse me and confuse everybody. I'd have to interpret that in a way that doesn't make sense. So when I look at humility, I look at things like a willingness to look at one's faults and deal with it, a willingness to admit the faults, to look at them, admit them, and deal with them. I think that's an essential aspect. It's the next thing I would look at is my tendency to criticize. I would also look, when you look at the tendency to criticize, you have to look at your tendency to respect and appreciate. Like on the scale, is the appreciation and respect high and the criticism low, or is it kind of the opposite, criticism high? So for us, I would look at that, I would ask all of you, start to notice how often you criticize and how often you appreciate. Not just in your words, but in your consciousness. And just like when you see a devotee, you think, I really like that devotee. Or these are good devotees. Or look at that devotee, they're always doing something wrong. Like what's going through your mind, or just your basic emotional response when you're dealing with people in general. Are you always, oh, they're just karmis, so they're all bad. Do you have this proclivity or tendency to put people down and criticize? Or do you have a tendency to appreciate, see good and see the good, and not see so much the bad? So that we should notice that, because it's definitely a sign of humility. These are all these are things we have to practice. And the other thing, I think, which is one of the most important things for our movement, is our ability to get along with others, have good relationships, and also compromise. Now our movement sometimes faces issues where we have to compromise to come to some decision. And how able are you to compromise? How much do you need to be right? How much are you willing to argue to get your point across? How well can you listen? These are signs of humility. You have a certain view. I don't want to hear it. No, but Prabhu, I want to tell. I don't want to hear it. I don't agree with you. That's a bad sign. Okay, tell me. I'll listen. And I listen. I try to understand. Maybe I don't agree, but I listen. So these to me are some overt signs of humility and then more of a practical application according to where we're at. Now there may be others. I can't think of offhand right now. Those stand out as very important. I would say in my life personally, I try to monitor this little radar that looks for respect. Who can I get respect from? How can I get it? Am I getting respect now? You have to monitor that, because that's one of the things that Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita, that humility means we don't want the sense gratification of being honored. It's like you're looking for sense gratification in the form of honor. Am I doing anything to impress somebody? Am I doing anything? Do I want to be the leader, not for service, but because I want to be a leader, to be recognized as a leader? We have to look at our motives. When it comes to image and being honored, we want to look at our motives. And this is, who am I trying to impress? Why am I trying to impress? What am I doing to impress? These things we want to look at. I'm leading a kirtan. What am I thinking of? The deities or how people will appreciate me? I'm cooking for the deities. What am I thinking? How people are going to appreciate my cooking, or Krishna will? These are the kind of things we have to monitor internally. that gives you a lot of homework, I think, for now, right?
Thank you so much. I'll
But-
try, Prabhuji.
But what I would say also, Rukmavati, is that as you become Krishna conscious, that will all happen also. You have to work on it, but it will happen as well. So you push yourself up and Krishna will pull you up. You do it from both ways. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. You're welcome.
Okay, over to you, Ram Sharan Prabhu. But before that, I want to thank Mahatma Prabhuji. Let us all thank him for joining us, blessing us. And we'd like to give an open invitation that next time you're in this tri-state area, please give us a chance to host you. We have many homes that would like to host you and also maybe visit us at the center. So let's thank
Okay.
Prabhuji with a loud Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you.
Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna Prabhuji, wonderful class. Thank you. Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna,
Everybody,
Prabhu.
please
Thank
stay
you so
on.
much.
We have a nice video coming up. Don't leave yet. Ram Sharan Prabhu, please take over.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Mahatma Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. I seek your blessings. So, thank you very much, Ramchandra Prabhuji, for kindly accepting my request to show this presentation today's evening. It was kind of final minute, but I'm thankful to you. And I would like to take a moment and truly appreciate the meaning behind this auspicious day. The essence of Diwali is a kind of triumph of good over the evil, finding the light in the darkest of times. So on this holy day, our Lord Ramchandra returned from exile and returned back to Ayodhya. The hearts of Lord Ramchandra's devotees were filled with immense joy and happiness. As our Lord returned, he did not need anyone's help actually, but through much love and devotions, many people, many devotees, many souls gathered and to assist Lord Ramchandra in his pastime. So such acts of devotion, it was not only just emanated from the souls in human body, but also other species like monkeys, bears, vulture, the Jatayu, king of the bird, and deer, and even a small squirrel. Everyone helped Lord Ramchandra in their capacity as a service. So regardless of outward dress, a pure spirit soul will always find themselves as an eternal servant of the Lord, and their hearts always filled with an attitude of gratitude and devoting their lives for the happiness of the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. So happiness within the hearts of these devotees kind of exploded like a fireworks in the dark sky. It's kind of lightening a path of pure devotion to the Lord. So actually, when we feel the happiness, it's kind of graphically we can depict that it will kind of explode. So fireworks is kind of symbolizes that our vibrations, our feelings. And on this day, Diwali, we celebrate Lord Ramchandra's victory and return home to Ayodhya. So we want to capture that love and devotion in the hearts of all these devotees, especially as I mentioned, all this the, the devotees like monkeys, bears, vulture, and all, how they cherish their Lord's victory and cherish the memories of their association with the Lord Ramchandra. So I have presented this, prepared this presentation filled with this fireworks and then the kind of music to celebrate the victory of the Lord. So I hope we'll all enjoy and join us in the spirit of Diwali to welcome the Lord into your hearts with the gratitude of fireworks. And I would like to dedicate this presentation to the Mother Krishna Nandini, who was Prabhupada's disciple, left this world yesterday morning. My mother, Krishna Nandini, led the Grihastha Vision team for the 2 decades, and she coached and mentored hundreds of the married couples who are practicing Krishna consciousness. She coined the phrase, strong families equal to strong ISKCON. And me and my wife are very, very fortunate as her students. We will miss her physical presence, but certainly she always stays with us by following her teachings. So Hare Krishna. So let me start my presentation. Thank you very much once again.
వస్తావయ్యా రమయ్య వస్తావయ్యా రమయ్య వస్తావయ్యా రమయ్య వస్తావయ్యా
मैंने दिल तुझको दिया मैंने दिल तुझको दिया ओ
रमैया वसावैया रमैया वसावैया रमैया वसावैया रमैया वसावैया
मैंने दिल तुझको दिया मैंने दिल तुझको दिया
ओ रमैया वसावैया रमैया वसावैया వస్తావయ్యా రమయ్య వస్తావయ్యా రమయ్య వస్తావయ్యా రమయ్య వస్తావయ్యా
मैंने दिल तुझको दिया मैंने दिल तुझको दिया
ओ रमैया वसावैया रमैया वसावैया रमैया वसावैया रमैया वसावैया
मैंने दिल तुझको दिया मैंने दिल तुझको दिया
ओ रमैया वसावैया रमैया वसावैया
Ramachandra Raghuvira Ramachandra Rana Veera
Ramachandra Raghuvira Ramachandra Ranadhira
Ramachandra Raghuvira Ramachandra Rana Veera
Ramachandra Raghuvira Ramachandra Ranadhira
Ramachandra Raghuvira Ramachandra
Ramachandra Raghuvira Ramachandra Ranadhira
Ramachandra Raghuvira Ramachandra Ranadhira Ramachandra Raghuvira Ramachandra Ranadhira
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's give a big round of applause. Unmute and thank Ramshar Prabhu.
Haribo.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So this was Ramshar Prabhu. You can stop sharing screen.
Yes.
So this was a tribute to Mataji and Ramshar Prabhu. Maybe you can say a little bit. She just left her body yesterday, I believe.
Yes, Prabhuji. She left the body yesterday morning.
Krishna Nandi
She was,
Mataji.
yeah,
Go
Krishna
ahead.
Nandi Mother. She was early disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And she's primarily, for 2 decades, she was managing the Grihastha vision. Her main service is to coach and mentor the Grihastha couple who are practicing Krishna consciousness, and also young couples like about to get married. So she has a great team, and then yeah, it's kind of my gratitude to her in her departure.
Thank you. Yeah, Prabhu put this in a very short time and very nicely done. And glories of Lord Ram we can have many, many mouths, many, many years, and yet it's less to glorify Lord Ramachandra. So many more festivals to come this month. So maintain that enthusiasm and keep your sadhana high and up. Please join us tomorrow at 8 p.m. Tomorrow's class on the Krishna book, chapter 15, The Killing of Dhenukasur, will be given by Shraddha Mataji. And if anybody would like to join the morning japa session, which is at 6 a.m., 6 to 8 a.m. Anybody has anything else they would like to share, or anything I missed? Any announcement? Otherwise, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And we are so lucky, we have so many Ram in our group, you know. Ram Sharan, and then Ram Chandran, and then Ram Tulsi. So we are so fortunate. Thank you for, bringing in these programs. Thank you, Ram Sharan Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, all the devotees. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyaiva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vaishnava Vrinda ki.
Jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Happy Diwali. Happy Govardhan Puja.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Same to you.